Hi everybody, I'm back to do part 2 of Mireya's memories. This one is called What's in a Name? The title of the memory book page is A Very Special Delivery. So today I'm kind of going to be talking about the delivery right after she was born and how we picked out her name. So for Mireya, I had chosen to go to the Layton IHC hospital, which is quite a drive. It's about 45 minutes from our house. And the reason why I chose that hospital is because they have a program there where you can have like a natural delivery, a home type delivery at the hospital. So it's minimally involved with the hospital staff, and they have more of a home-like feel to the room, like it's a normal bed. They have a birthing tub in there, and I wanted to do that program, and so I set up all of my prenatal care through Layton IHC, and my plan was to go to that home birthing room. The reason I wanted to be at the hospital is because a lot of our births have been complicated. Um, I've had different issues with some of our babies, and so I kind of wanted that ability to have the emergent care if it was necessary, while at the same time having the option of the more natural home birth if it went that way. And so that's why I chose to go so far away. And Mireya's doctor out at Layton IHC, her name was Karen Bradley. And she has been probably the most caring and genuine doctor that I've ever had. And she definitely went way above and beyond what her duty as the doctor was. She was there for us emotionally. She listened. She was more involved than I could have ever expected any doctor to be. She did a fantastic job. And so if anyone ever needs a prenatal care, I would highly recommend her. I'll always have a special place in my heart for her. And actually, this whole thing was her suggestion. And the way it came about was that after Mireya passed away, she insisted that I keep coming in for my mental health so that she could reevaluate me for pre or postnatal depression, and just to check in on me and see how me and the family were doing. And at one of those meetings, she kept asking me, "How are you coping? How are you dealing with things? What are you doing to be able to work through this?" And I had some answers for her, but until I got the idea to put all this stuff in Mireya's baby book, I couldn't really answer that question very well. And so when I got this idea at the next appointment, I brought it up to her, and she said that is a fantastic way to work through grief. And she said, you should find a way to use that to help people, because I just love that idea. And so that's actually kind of what got the ball rolling for me to start this whole thing, was that then my mind started thinking about, how can I use this to help people? And I was already praying about how I could use Mireya's life to be a blessing for other people, to shine in the world for the Lord, and all of those things I talked about in the first video. And so she kind of gave me that nudge to really give me what I needed to get it going in a physical form. So on the day that Mireya was born, I was scheduled for an induction early in the morning, and Shane and I, my mom, headed out to Layton IHC early. Well, it was scheduled early, and then we ended up pushing it back to the afternoon, and I can't remember why. But anyways, it was afternoon when we finally got out there, and they hooked me up to the monitors, and they said, "What's your plan?" Said, "I'm planning on doing the natural birthing room," and they got us set up in there. And Dr. Bradley came in, and she said, "There's something not normal about the baby's heartbeat." And she said, I really think that we should do a C-section. And immediately, because every time we'd had any kind of problems with our other deliveries, it was always C-section. We got to do a C-section. And we ended up having every single one of those kids without a C-section. And so immediately Shane kind of dropped into this mode of, that's not happening. And so we talked to her some more about why she felt that way. And I got on the phone with Jessica Roberts because she had been my doula a few times. And I told her all the things that were happening, that they thought it was an abnormal heart rate, that they had done this, that, and the other thing to try and make sure that a C-section was necessary. And at the end of that phone call, she talked to Shane and she said, well, it sounds like that's what needs to happen. And so we told Dr. Bradley, okay, let's do it. And they took me back to do the C-section. They checked her heartbeat, and it was 3 minutes later, they pulled her out and she wasn't breathing. She had no heartbeat. They immediately took her and they were doing CPR on her. And someone came out and said, oh, would you like to know if your baby was a boy or a girl? Because we didn't find out with her. It was going to be a surprise. And I said, yeah, I want to know. And they said, you had a baby girl. So that's kind of the story of her birth. I left out quite a few details because I'm going to cover them in different videos for various aspects. So if we look at this page, a very special delivery. Her hair was brown. She was born on January 28th of 2021. She was delivered at about 4:45. I don't know the exact time because it was so chaotic. Nobody recorded her time of birth. The weight and her length are both estimated. I don't think we ever got a real measurement because they just didn't have time to do that. That wasn't a priority. Her eyes were blue, and I believe, so 2 of our girls have blue eyes, Kinsley and Chloe, and Eli and Cadence have brown eyes. And when I looked into Mireya's eyes, they looked blue, like Chloe's and Kinsley's did. So I believe that they would have been blue. Like I said, her doctor was Karen Bradley. The hospital was Layton IHC. And her name is Mireya Brielle. So the names, our kids' names, all of our kids' names, except for Cadence, we chose very intentionally for the meanings. So when Cadence was born, Shane and I were living in rebellion. We weren't married, and we were far from living a life for the Lord. We chose Cadence's name without knowing what it meant. When Eli was born, we were committed to the Lord, and we wanted to choose a name that reflected our devotion to raising children committed to Him. So Eli means God, godly, or like God. And his middle name, Lachlan, means a warrior. So Eli's name was chosen for the meaning godly warrior. When we had Chloe, I was at, well, I would call it like I was at a high spiritually in my life. We chose her name because Chloe means to cultivate or bring forth, and Noel means the good news about Jesus. My pregnancy and delivery with Kinsley were really complicated. Bringing her into the world kind of left me at a spiritual low, and I was drowning in a sea of whys. Why did it happen like this? Why this? Why that? We named her Kinsley, which means the king's meadow, and her middle name is Nevaeh, which means heaven. And the king obviously refers to Jesus, and his home being heaven is a reminder that because he rose and was seated at God's right hand, we can wisely hope in him. And I desperately needed that hope after that delivery. When Mireya was born, like I said, we didn't find out if she was a boy or a girl. So we kind of had several names chose for both. The girl names that I liked were Frankie, Ivy, Nicole, Elsie, Eve, Kylie, Belle, Iva, and Natalie. And the boy names that I liked were Ivan, Ian, Victor, Israel, and Ty. So, like I said, when she was born, she was immediately rushed off for CPR. We still didn't know for a while if we'd had a boy or a girl. It was about 15 minutes before someone came out and told us that we had had a girl. The first night in the hospital was horrible. I was stuck at the Layton IHC recovering from my surgery. I couldn't even walk, and she was life flighted away to Primary Children's Hospital. In the middle of the night on the first night, I got a phone call. The doctor said, "We have a procedure that we can try to do to save your baby's life, but she probably won't survive it." And I said, "Well, I'm at the Layton IHC and my husband is at home. You can't ask me to make that decision by myself." And he said, "She's going to die before morning." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to call her dad." And so he hung up with me, and I didn't hear back from either him or Shane until the next day. And Shane came into IHC in Layton before he headed out to Primary Children's to see her. And I didn't know how all that ended or what was going on. But when I talked to Shane, I said, "Did you talk to the doctor last night?" He said, "Well, I called him this morning." And I said, "Was she still alive?" And he said, "Yeah, she was still alive." And I said, "Did they do the procedure?" And he said, "No, they didn't." And he said, "I want you to pick out a name for her." And this was like a huge deal. If you know me and Shane and how much we have a hard time picking out names for our babies, we go the rounds. We just can't seem to agree ever on a name. And so for him to just hand that over to me was huge. And at first I kind of thought like, oh, this is a opportunity because I've loved this name Frankie for a girl. For every one of our babies I've wanted to name our girls Frankie. And Shane's like, no way. You know, with all the gender confusion and everything, we couldn't do that right now. And so I had always had my heart set on that name, and I thought, oh, this is my chance. I can name my baby girl Frankie. And then I was like, no, I couldn't do that. That's not right. And so I pulled up Google and started searching for a name, and the first one that I found that I liked was Mireya. And it caught my attention because it was a Hebrew origin name. And so I looked up the meaning, and it meant miracle. And I thought, that's the name. That's her name. And so I wrote down Mireya, and then I found Brielle, which means of God. And so Mireya, Brielle, it means miracle of God. And this little name tag that's pasted on the front was the name tag they made for her. And it was placarded right above her at Primary Children's Hospital so that all the doctors and specialists and people that had to run tests would come in and they would say, "What's her name?" And we'd get to tell them, "It's Mireya." And they were like, "Oh, how did you find that name? I've never heard that before." And we would get to share with them what it meant, how it came to be, the names of our other children. And man, in that situation where we were so burdened with everything going on, all the decisions that we had to make, that really just brought some light and love to us and to the people that we got to share with. And so that's the story of Mireya's name. During that first night, after I got the phone call from the doctor, I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed that God would sustain her life, that I would be able to hold her. And He did that for me. And I really feel like it was a miracle. And the other thing I wanted to share is that, come to find out, after we had Eli and named him, I got to wondering, I wonder what Cadence's name means. And so I looked it up, and Cadence means to keep in step with, and Elise means God is satisfaction. So her name means keep in step with God being satisfaction. And each of their names has been, man, it's been such a blessing to see them grow and strive to fulfill the meanings of their names. And it just really touches me that God knew my heart before I even did. And His miracles never cease, even when they're not what we want them to be. So we'll revisit this story again, like I said, as I do other pages. There's going to be other parts of it that I'll go into more detail about, that'll be more specifically geared toward the topic I'm covering that day. And then before I end the video, I also just wanted to mention 2 announcements. One is that I'm starting on Papa Murphy's fundraiser on her Facebook page today. I'll post the pictures, but it's basically like a coupon card, and they cost $10, and you just pull off the coupons for each item, and you can use them to get different things. I think one of them is like a free large pizza, another one is like $4 off a specialty, one is like a free dessert with the purchase of a pizza. And so anyways, they're well worth $10 if you eat Papa Murphy's. So I'll go ahead and post those pictures so you guys can check that out. If you don't want to buy any, just share them with your contacts and see if we can build on that one. And then also the other announcement is that I'm going to be uploading these videos onto YouTube. And so if you guys know someone who's experienced a loss or has had a baby die in the past that might be blessed by these videos, but they don't do Facebook, I'll go ahead and link the YouTube videos on her Facebook page so that you can share those with people. Or they can just look them up on YouTube. It's going to be under Mireya's Mission as well. And so that's the point of those. And I hope you guys all have the best day ever. And I'll see you guys later.